Welcome to Have You Played, a Connecting a Game podcast that dives into the games we all love, or at times love to hate. One game at a time, we discuss what it is about these games that stay with us, the parts of play that move us, compel us to pick up the next game, and the things that made us fall in love with games in the first place. Hey, it's Mark Lajeunesse here with Andre Zanescu, and people call him the Pokémon Prof. We're doing our first Pokémon games on Have You Played. Hey, Andre.
Hey, Mark.
Have you played Pokémon?
No, never. What is this Pokémon that you are talking about?
Well, Pokémon are tiny collectible monsters that live inside video games and on merchandise, making Pokémon the largest selling media franchise of all time.
It's true. So actually, I have played Pokemon. This is it would not make sense to have a podcast about a thing I've never touched. So yeah, for listeners, this is an interesting podcast because when we were trying to figure out how we would approach Pokemon, everyone comes at it differently, and so we were like, let's do the first ones, and it was like, no, let's do like more recent ones. And I think we just ended up figuring out that it'd be best if we talked about the one that you started with, which, you know, maybe if you're if these aren't like the Pokemon games that you, the listener, have played, then yeah, sorry, I don't hate those more. It's just not like the one that got me into it.
Yeah, not at all. I actually like some of the later ones, and I mean, hey, if you have an opinion, feel free to comment. You know,
Yeah.
We want to hear from you too. All we have is what we have. That's what we bring. So, Andre, what was your first Pokemon? What games are we actually talking about here today?
So, I mean, for me, it's going to be a bit of a complex situation. The short answer is Silver and Gold, but really, there's like a broader context when I'm going to get to talk about my stuff. So, I think on this one, I'm going to take the back seat because I think yours are a bit earlier than mine.
They are. It all starts at the beginning in Canada. So 2 years after these games came out in Japan. In 1998, September of 1998, a very young, ambitious Mark Lajeunesse, already consuming the Pokemon anime series that had been airing well before the release of this game in Canada, was just waiting and waiting for the day that I could get my hands on this mythical game from across the sea. And that day came. And I still remember, it was me, it was my buddy Matt, his dad driving us to the store on the very, very nearly the day or the day after this came out. I think we had to reserve a copy at EB Games, which is, you know, we're in Canada, and at the time, which is where we would get our games. And yeah, he got red, and I got blue, and that's my first Pokemon.
Thank God. I thought you were going to tell me you also got red and it made trading like impossible.
Listen,
Did you have the cable? Do you have like the connector cable for the console?
We did eventually, and I know about a month or so after the games came out, we actually went back to get the Game Boy Color, because that came out right after the first Pokemon, and I think that's when we got the trading cables. Because I can remember we were having some real difficulty, my buddy Matt and I, with not getting some of the Pokemon we wanted because we didn't know which Pokemon weren't in which game fully. And I had blue, and I wanted an Oddish, and I couldn't get one until a month after the game. It was like the then equivalent of like DLC was you having enough money to get the peripheral you required to unlock the character.
Oh my god.
But even then, the link cables didn't work too much. And I mean, for me, this is a podcast about like our formative memories with the game and what stays with you. And really, I think the thing that really sticks with me when I think about my first Pokemon game was getting in the back of Matt's dad's van, going to the store, getting those games, and then sitting around together with our big clunky Game Boys and just being so fucking happy that we could finally play this thing and be part of this Pokemon experience that we had already been somewhat exposed to through the show that we were watching on, I think, YTV. I'm not actually sure of the network that it was on, but man, we were primed to absorb Pokemon.
Yeah. So I came to Silver and Gold in like a really strange way.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So for context, right? Because original is what, like 98. That's
Yep,
the
1998 September. It came out 96 in Japan. Came out September 98 in Canada, at least. Yeah.
So I had just gotten back from living abroad for a couple years. So my dad was working in Venezuela, and so I knew nothing about like games that weren't on like a Sega Genesis or a Sega Saturn at the time. And I came back to Canada in 98, and I pawned off all my old video game consoles and everything, and I managed to buy a Nintendo 64. And in that year, so like going into third grade for me, Pokemon blew up, right? So the anime, or like I guess the cartoon for us, but it is an anime, started up in 98 and it moved to YTV in 99.
Okay.
But what was a lot more present everywhere at the time were the cards. So I actually, like, my first contact with Pokemon came from the trading card game, which everyone had. Like, nobody played them because we were kids. We didn't understand how Pokemon cards were supposed to be played, but everybody collected them.
Right.
And this was like, for people who are listening to this now who may not have been around for that, it's kind of difficult to describe how everywhere Pokemon was. Like there was like a general sense of Pokemania, and I wanted to specify in Quebec at least, so in the Montreal area, it got so bad that school boards had to ban Pokemon cards from schools because in 99, I'm pretty sure there was a boy who got stabbed, and there was a girl who got attacked in a school bus by like bullies who were trying to steal cards. Like it was the social currency that kids traded between each other. And so that was like ramping up in 98, 99. And then at the end of 99, Pokemon Fossil came out. And this is like maybe my, I love my mom's story of the podcast.
Go for it.
Which is Fossil was coming out, and I really, really loved Kabutops as an original Pokemon because I loved fossils and archaeology and dinos and that kind of stuff. And they were like ungettable. So my mom got off work. She was working in a factory at the time and got off work at like 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve and walked through a blizzard to get to the nearest Toys R Us where a cousin of mine was working. And they managed to convince the manager to keep 2 booster packs of Pokemon Fossil on like layaway for her, and she paid them like triple price, which was crazy. It was like $60 for a trading card pack at the time. It'd be like 100, 150 now, depending on how you slice it. And she got them for me, and that was like my Christmas Eve. We opened presents on Christmas Eve for Romanians, and I opened like a Gengar. And that's still like my favorite Pokemon and my favorite Pokemon card. And so at that point, I was like, I have to play Pokemon. Like the TV show is a part of my life. I love the cards so much, but I can't play a Pokemon. And Stadium released for us in February of 2000. So like a little while after. And you could play the Pokemon that was inserted into the Pokemon Stadium pack in your controller with
Right.
like the double or triple speed. And that's how I first got to play Pokemon Silver and Gold, which were originally released in 99, so I played them a little bit after they came out, but it was like it didn't matter. Like Pokemon was so a part of how kids interacted, what was cool, which one was your favorite, what did you like, what season of the TV show were
So
you on? It was just like everywhere.
this is super interesting. So when did you what year were you playing exactly?
So I would say like I was playing at other people's houses 99,
99. Okay.
by myself 2000.
By yourself 2000.
Like in my home.
Okay. So when Pokemon hits, it is it is nerd shit. Like our crew that was all into Pokemon, it was not the thing that kids were doing yet, right? It was very much still like this is this is a niche hobby for all the nerdy kids. And between September 1998 and 2000, Pokemon just it permeates youth.
It's everything.
Yeah.
I think I remember in grade school like that because 2000 for me is like grade 4. It's like between grade 4 and grade 6 there were only 3 things that kids talked about, and that was Pokemon, Harry Potter, and Dragon Ball. Like this might be a Quebec specific thing because like the anime was big, but Dragon Ball was coming in manga that was coming from France, translated for Quebec, so it was like pretty accessible. You could like buy them for $10. So like if you were into those 3 things, you were cool. Like that was what happened. And you get to high school and it's completely different. Like, that's not at all what's in anymore. But for like those 2-3 years, that was the social currency. And like, did you have the sickest Pokemon card? And I had a first edition foil Gengar. So I was riding high for, those 24 months or whatever.
We all want to be a first edition foil Gengar, but here I am, an oddish. All right, so I think what were the 3 Pokemon that you could choose at the start of the game, and which one did you go with and why?
Oh shit. Okay, so Silver and Gold had, these are Gen 2 Pokemon. So you had Cyndaquil.
Okay.
You had
Describe them for the listeners if they're not familiar with.
Okay, so Cyndaquil is kind of like a, well, it's like a badger. Like the evolution eventually is like a fire badger.
Okay.
So it's like a little rodent Pokemon with like a little bit of flames, and then it keeps getting like angrier as all fire Pokemon do. Totodile was like a little alligator. It became a bigger alligator. And Chikorita was like this sort of like quadruped that was like surrounded with leaves and became like kind of like a little bit of I didn't like a deer, I guess, but not really. It's not really a deer, but it doesn't really have like an animal equivalent other than like it has a leaf on its forehead and it keeps getting bigger.
Are there animals like that in nature?
There are a lot of them, but like I can't say it's a deer Pokemon because like there are actually deer Pokemon, like there are rhinos, there's a zebra Pokemon. Like the problem is there are so many Pokemon now that I can't like identify what it is because there are other Pokemon that are more that thing than this.
Yeah.
So now you've made me realize
that
undisclosed
millions of Pokemon everywhere have been market corrected by the newest generations of Pokemon.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about like how boys were socialized at the time and what was like cool and stuff, but like you really, I don't think like young boys in the late 90s at that age specifically could like be like, I'm a Chikorita fan and like not get bullied, unfortunately. And so already it was like, am I the alligator or the fire badger? And fire just seemed cooler to me, so I was this Cyndaquil, Quilava, Typhlosion main, I guess.
You went full flames.
Full flames. What about you?
Well, I made a very deliberate choice to get Pokemon Blue. And so you can probably see where this is going. But my starters were, the classics. You had Bulbasaur, a little tiny dinosaur with a flower bulb on its back. We have Charmander, a little salamander that charred people with fire, and his cute shiny bald head. And then you had Squirtle. And this was a no-brainer for me. I bought this for Squirtle. And so I picked up this little turtle. This little squirting turtle spraying water at people.
So how does it feel nearly, I want to say 25 years later,
to be a Squirtle player?
You were objectively correct by like the internet culture. Like the fact that everyone has pictures of like the cool glasses Squirtle gang, and like the meme culture has kind of adopted Squirtle as like the superior choice.
Listen, I've made some misplays in my life at various times, but I feel like I had a lot of confidence that Squirtle was absolutely the best. If not mechanically, because let's get this out of the way. I am not a Pokemon min-maxer. That's not the hill I die on with this. It's a flavor game for me. And
you're not doing the Trick Room Snorlax inverting speed bugs for competitive play. That's not where the fun is for you.
Not at all. And Squirtle really just has so much character, and as Charmander evolves, it becomes really mean, and like Squirtle's first evolution is into Wartortle, which it has war in the name, but behind that kind of callous, battle-readied exterior, they're still loving those eyes. And Blastoise, man, Blastoise enjoys a meal. And, around the table is where we really share culture. You know what I mean? And I think Blastoise would be, out of all three of those endgame evolutions, one's a dragon. He just wants to burn shit. He looks angry. What's the max evolution of Bulbasaur? Venusaur?
The Venusaur.
It's the Venusaur.
It's the big
the top
plant
one. I can't remember the middle one, so I always confuse the
Ivysaur.
Ivysaur. That's right.
It's a closed plant, open plant, big plant.
Yeah, listen, I'm not other than Oddish, I'm really not a plant Pokemon guy. I invested heavily into Oddish. But it's just a dinosaur. It can't even talk to you. But Bulbasaur? Or not Bulbasaur, but Blastoise? Come on. That's where we're at. The stories he's gonna have at Thanksgiving is all I'm saying. Like this is a Pokemon you could socialize with.
What's did it go to war? Is it coming
it
back?
was a war turtle. It's gonna tell you things.
It's Brigadier General.
And then it's
Admiral
a Blastoise, and you think it's blasting you with water. It's not. It's blasting you with its life lore.
Oh my god. Okay. I feel like you were a bit more. You were at an age where you were considering these things more, and I was just like, oh, flames. Cool.
Oh, I didn't consider this at the time. This is a deep retroactive psychological investigation into why I picked Squirtle.
What does it say about you?
Actually, okay, so this was all a bit ridiculous, but the truth is, I wish Squirtle didn't evolve. Like there are points in the games where you really have to evolve them, or at least it feels like you do. I don't actually. You can probably get through the game without evolving them, but I didn't do it as a kid. But one of my memories, one of my core feelings attached to that game was I loved Squirtle so much as Squirtle that I really wish I just took him through the whole game as Squirtle, because that was my guy. I didn't want him to change. Maybe it was a reflection of my age at the time. If Squirtle grew old, I too was growing old. But eventually you gotta let it happen,
We're getting older now. We need the fourth form of all Pokemon to continue aging.
That's right, and we need to make them enormous, just absolutely giant with where the franchise is going.
Well, there are the Mega Forms now.
That's
There's
right.
Mega Blastoise, or no, it's not Mega. Well, there were the Mega Forms, but I'm thinking of the Gigantamax ones from Sword and Shield. That's neither here nor there. That's a different entry into the franchise. So okay, so we've got like a general point of approach and like what the starter was that you picked. So
Yeah.
how did the game feel to you? Like when you played it, do you feel like it holds up? Were you like amazed? You know, because last week we talked about
Oh, does it hold
Destiny and
up?
how Destiny felt like the first time to you.
Yeah.
Maybe not if it holds up, but like did it just like blow your socks off? What was the experience like?
The experience for me was it was this really like mixed media experience where the game the first season of the show takes you basically through the events of the game, right? In the game there's this part with the ship, and in the show they do that as well. All the gym trainers are the same. And I had seen the show first, or at least parts of the show. I didn't finish before I started playing, but um, the the memory of playing this game is so reshaped by how vivid the anime kind of overlays on those memories of play that I I would say the game holds up retroactively only because like it's so vivid and real, right? Like there are times in my mind where I used to walk home from school for lunch to make craft dinner, and Pokemon would air at that lunch during that lunchtime, and uh, I would be eating my craft dinner, watching the show, not actually playing the game, and I would just kind of absorb that as a memory of playing. And when I got to that point in the game, they would just kind of fuse together as one moment. And that's how I remember the whole experience now. It's just this one collective moment. So does it hold up? Yeah, because it's so interconnected in the way that I assume it is with you and the Pokemon cards, where the game is not just the game here. Like it's really hard to think of it that way because the thing I before doing this podcast, I went back and looked at a playthrough of Pokemon Blue. That's not at all how I remember this game. It does not look like that with the janky text and the very like flashing start of combat screen. That's not the memory that I have. You know, I have the really emotional moment of uh, Brock and Ash meeting for the first time. That doesn't really happen in the game, but it's there. It's the same memory for me.
Right. Yeah, for me. I mean, the show was really like it was kind of impossible to like not entangle the two. And I
Yeah.
remember it's interesting because for us it aired at 4. So like I would get out of grade school at like 3:30, and it would be the kind of thing where you were like you would be looking at the clock hands to 3:30 because you knew at 4 p.m. Pokemon was airing,
Mm.
and you had to be home with like a snack or something. And my mom would constantly get angry at me because I would get in and I would just like shoot my backpack to the back of my room and just run to the screen because it was Pokemon time.
Right.
And the interesting part is Silver and Gold are not they're not in the first seasons of the show for sure,
Yeah.
because the first seasons of the show cover Blue and Red, and then the second seasons are like the ones in the water where he's going like around the islands, and there's
Yeah.
like only 4 gyms. Whereas like Silver and Gold are in Johto, which is modeled on the Kansai region and has like a lot of the tall, like the sort of tall pagoda style temples, and there's a lot more like torii gates. It's a completely different vibe. And so it took a long time for the anime to sort of catch up with the Pokemon offerings of the games. And it felt like I was playing stuff that would like sometimes converge, but it was completely different.
Hmm.
And for me, what happened was I ended up watching the show to see when Lugia would show up,
Right.
or Ho-Oh, or the legendary dogs in Silver and Gold that I had already played with, I was like, I can't wait for these to come out in the anime or in the
Oh, that's
cards. Like,
cool.
I want to see these
Hmm.
in higher def, right? Which is really interesting because going down from playing Stadium to playing like a much lower resolution game, it was kind of an adjustment. I was like, the gym battles are kind of cooler on N64 than they are on a Game Boy Color.
It's true, and that's one of the really like interesting distortions of the memory of playing this, which is it, in going back to watch this, I was like, it's not only that it looks worse than I remember, it looks so much worse than I remember.
The like four to eight sound channels available on a Game Boy
Yeah,
Culture,
or even
a Game Boy Color.
or even a choice that was made at the time. I don't know if you know this, but when you played this on a Game Boy Color, depending on the if you chose red or blue, there would be a red or blue like color overlay on the whole game. And like
Right.
as a as a young man, I didn't care. My eyes could do anything. Looking at that now, oh wow, it's brutal.
It is.
Less is more. Less is less is certainly more in this case.
Do you know if Yellow had like a yellow overlay?
I didn't play it. I didn't play
Uh,
Yellow. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave some intrepid listeners to let us know if Yellow did have a yellow overlay. I don't see why it wouldn't.
yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, and the other thing to think about with these as well was like the game was heavily inflected by the first two movies because those
Right.
were really big in theaters, right? The first Pokemon movie, I think, was the first movie that I went to theaters to see. Like that is my first movie going experience where I, I I told my mom, I was like, we gotta make it to the theater. And when you're like 8 or 9 years old, and the theater is not in your hometown, like you got to go by bus
Yeah.
to another town, it's like a big investment. I cried my eyes out at the end of that first movie. That's some emotional terrorism right there. But a lot of I think it's pretty interesting that despite the fact that we play different Pokemon games, and I'm assuming some folks who are listening to this may have played Yellow first or Crystal, which I
Yeah.
think was the or no, it was Platinum was the one that was the like third out of Silver and Gold, and then
Hmm.
we get into the other ones. Like everybody who came to Pokemon probably came in through like a transmedia storytelling kind of complex. Like very rarely do I hear about people who are like, I played Pokemon for the first time, having never heard about a Pokemon before.
I mean, now it's just it's impossible. How could you possibly do it? There's no
I
way.
No,
The
there's
highest
no way.
selling media franchise all time. It's
Listen, I mean, I got back from like traveling in Greece a couple weeks back, and there are bootleg Pikachu's being sold in like the alleyways of Athens by like 60-year-old like kiosk owners who are selling cigarettes and like dill pickle and olive flavored goods, and also a Pikachu. Like it's that, like it's just everywhere. It's
So-
not. It's yeah.
some days I feel like a bootleg Pikachu.
We have Pikachu at home. At home, you
Me.
doing work.
That's right.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I feel like Pokemon is one of those like transcends video gaming kind of games where like people who really have never put a hand on a console uh, know what you're talking about. Like they may not understand the gameplay of the game, but at a like general level, they're like, yes, there are many monsters. You collect them. That's Pokemon. Yeah, they fight each other sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a Pikachu.
Yeah, but at a certain point, you don't really need to understand the gameplay anymore. I think it it lives in the culture now in the way that it does, such that even for us folks who have played these, and I don't really play them anymore. I keep buying new Pokemon games, and I play them for about 5 minutes, and I'm like, maybe it's that they don't look like the anime really, even though they probably look better than the anime looked now. But there's something about the experience, even of these newest entries, is never as good as I remember it being back in the
Yeah.
day, right? And that's
Well, there's like a thing we really do have like, nostalgia goggles, and also like the when you're a kid, it really, at least at that time, it like didn't matter. Like everything that you saw on a console or a screen was just the development of video game technology, and also cartoon, like the way that things were drawn and how they were made, and the
animation.
speed,
Yeah.
animation, just everything was developing so rapidly that like everything that came out was inherently just like a technological leap and kind of wondrous.
Mhm.
Where now it's like things evolve. Like, you look at a Pokemon game now, and they're definitely like better than they were 5 years ago, but also they still look like Pokemon games, where like the leap from like blue red to like stadium is like, oh my god, what? You mean I can see like a 3D rendering of the Venusaur I'm using, and it's using solar beam,
Yeah.
a thing that I watched in the cartoon?
No, Pokemon Snap was a big deal for this as well. But I remember in my friend group, um, Pokemon Snap was kind of this like huge disappointment because you could get the rendering, but the adventure wasn't really there. Like there
Yeah.
was, I think part of the magic of Pokemon, right? And I guess we'll move this along, is getting those badges though, and it really is this very wholesome, do your best, get out there, and you can do it kind of story. And it's not, especially in the early Pokemon, it's not full of tragedy and heartbreak. It's a very simple move on through. Although some things that trainers say throughout the game can be oddly introspective in
There's
their
also some, yeah, there's some conspiracy theories around hidden aspects of the Pokemon world that you don't get to see because you're from the perspective of a child. Have you heard about this? Do you?
probably. But let's fill me in. Let's pretend I don't.
So this happened in the TV show, and also is a part of like the third gym in the game. But you get to Vermilion City, where you fight Lieutenant Surge, who is in full military attire. Like the gym is army folks,
Okay.
and he has a Raichu, and it's heavily implied that he's forcing all of his Pokemon to evolve forcibly because he wants them to be the strongest. And people just assume that Lieutenant Surge was kind of an asshole for years. And then the theory that came out was, actually, if you consider the fact that there are no adult men in the first Pokemon setting, and also that Lieutenant Surge and his aides seem to be exhibiting like some low-key forms of PTSD, and that he may have had Pokemon die. There's like a full implication of like a Pokemon World War, and that Lieutenant Surge is a veteran with trauma. And so like this stuff is like far-fetched, but obviously kind of compatible with the way that the story is told, such that people have headcanoned an entire Pokemon World War into the story.
Do we have too
I don't
much
know what to do with
time
that.
on our hands as like a society?
Oh,
Like
100%. But that's not. I listen. This podcast is evident of that.
Although
fact.
listen, I fully subscribe to other game lore conspiracies that we'll talk about in a couple weeks even, that really do make the game better. And I see it. Although there are a bunch of adult men in the first, like Professor Oak is there.
Well, he's old. He can't serve at that age.
So you're
I don't know what the conscription ages
like
are
between
in
the ages
Kanto.
of like 18 and 50. There's no adult males
Yeah.
in the game. Is that true?
my understanding is that the only people who are around are either like much older or they're criminals who like dodge the draft, like Giovanni. I, listen,
What do you mean criminals? They're
this is the.
conscientious objectors.
Oh my god!
Moving on.
It's like a full subplot line of like who object, like what is the government style, who's going to war. Oh god.
As a little break to this really highbrow discussion on Pokemon lore conspiracy, I have prepared for you a short Gen 2 word association game where I'm going to name a Pokemon for you from your favorite series, Silver Gold here, your favorite entries in the series. And I just, like to get your one or two word reaction to what I
Putting
tell
me
you.
on the spot here.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah, as ready as I'm ever gonna be.
Hoot hoot.
It's an owl with a little. I don't think it has a bow tie.
Are you just going to
Rowlet.
describe what they are? I'm looking for that like Rorschach test level.
Oh, big owl.
Pichu.
That's small Pikachu.
Jesus. Togepi.
Egg with spiky hair.
You're just describing them.
Oh, you want me to? Well, I thought you were trying to test. My association is egg. Smiling egg. There you go. That better.
Mareep.
I don't know. That just sounds like Marie Pierre, which is like a very common Quebec name to me. I can't remember.
This is what I was trying to get to. Pseudo-Wudo.
I mean, that's just a Sudoku, really.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
And the last one, we'll do two because I just found another one. Murkrow.
That's when Crow is a mercenary.
Right.
Like, he's for hire.
He might be. And Slowking.
That's just me when I wake up in the morning.
God.
It takes a long time. I'm very sleepy until I get my coffee in.
Well,
I wish I had prepped one of these for you. You didn't tell me about this. This is unplanned.
unplanned, that's right. And it sounds as though it was unplanned. Should we move on to some segments, or do you have anything else you would like to discuss about your first Pokemon experience?
I think I'm generally good. I guess here's a question for you before we move on to the segments.
Yeah.
Or because generally the way that we're structuring these for listeners is we talk about the games generally, we talk about our experiences of them, and then we try to talk about the structure of the games. And so my question is, like, you mentioned you really like the gyms.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the games had like a good mix of you're on the routes or you're in one of the intermission zones, like the caves or the like the safari zone, and then the gyms? Or did you ever feel like it was too long, or like you just wanted a more streamlined experience when you were playing them?
So in the first games, I think I was perfectly content to play whatever they put in front of me. In more recent releases, and I know they're doing this now, but I haven't played the new Pokemon games. I haven't. I actually wanted a bit more freedom. Again, as we like the defining game of my like life is WoW, right? Like it just is. That's the game I've probably still spent the most time playing, and I would pick up a Pokemon game while I was playing that game, and I'd really want more room to graze, Like, I felt the games were always a bit too linear as I kind of grew up as a player.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a trend that we saw with a lot of players too, with the reception to the Final Fantasy 13, I think, where players didn't respond very well to having the corridor.
Right, the 22-hour linear path.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, clearly Pokemon has worked with its formula and having their games be very linear. You go from gym to gym. You don't really have much choice. You continue to do that same thing game after game after game after game. But for me, it became really grating. I think it's honestly probably one of the reasons I have such a hard time getting into some of the more recent entries as well, is because I still find it to feel that way. The last one I played was the one set in that Hawaiian setting in
The
like
Sun and
2017,
Moon,
2018,
yeah.
Sun and Moon. And I still felt like I was fairly locked down in the game.
I played a bunch of Sword and Shield, which is the most technically Arceus Legends is more recent, but that's the most recent of the like core style of
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And that one has kind of a thing where it's more like a star shape map where you keep coming back to like a central field where there's a lot of different Pokemon, and the field has like biomes and stuff. So it's slightly more freeform, and there's some selection. Do you go to this gym or that gym first? So there's like a different ordering that you can do sometimes. But I still had the same feeling where I was like, I wish there was like a different structure to this. Like I wish it was more open world, which is I imagine. I actually haven't played Arceus Legends, so my understanding is that that one is actually a bit more of what it sounds like we would both want out
Yeah,
of the
but
franchise.
at the same time, as a much older human being who, in his career, must play many games, do I have time for a Pokemon in my life? I don't know. I really don't think so. I also tried the ones that they ported over to the Switch. Eevee, tried to get into that, which is I think just a remake of
I
the
think Let's Go
original.
Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu is they're both remakes. They're effectively like Yellow.
Right.
Uh, if you got like an Eevee for like evolutions instead of the
Which is like
original.
the exact thing that I wanted in 1998. Was just
Yeah.
let me start with an Eevee and carry this thing along with me for the whole ride until I want to turn it into exactly what I want. That would have been a game for me. But yeah, I still had a hard time getting into that. Although again, I like where they're taking the series from afar. It's just now I find it really difficult to get into.
I got this too. Like every time I look at one, I'm like, oh, in theory, I really like this, and I play it, and I can't like stick through with the whole game. Like I think I've played like half of a Pokemon game for every one of the last Pokemons I've played. Like I constantly do like 6 or 7 gyms, and I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then I move to something else,
Yeah, the full
which
journey
is
doesn't work.
sad.
Did you ever get into competitive Pokemoning that came out in more recent entries?
So I myself didn't compete. However, I did know some folks who were playing competitively, and so watching it was like a thing that I did for a while. And back when I was teaching last year, I had a student who was a competitive Pokemon player who wrote sort of like a draft for designing uh, a next installment that would be more competitive focused even inside of the game. So it's
Hmm.
like percolating around, but it's a completely different kind of game. Like there are aspects of Pokemon that competitive brings in that you like, for example, like retreating your Pokemon and swapping them
Right.
is such a core part of competitive that like you really don't pay that much attention to when you're playing the games casually. Or like moves that prevent switching between Pokemon become so important.
Yeah.
So it's like around. What about you?
I never got into it, but as I will frequently remind, for as many of the games that we're going to talk about on this series came out while I was in Japan. I was in Japan, and I had a student there who was so deep into the meta, and he would practice English with me by explaining to me his various Pokemon strategies in the game, and it was, I don't know, it was really cool, and part of me kind of was nostalgic for like in 1998, if the network technology and the culture around Pokemon had been such that like we could have been competitive players then, would I have just effectively thrown my life away to be the best there ever was? And I can't definitively say that the answer is no. Like there's an interest, especially now with how many Pokemon there are. Is like, man, if I picked up my first Pokemon game 20 years later or whatever, as in the same age I was in 1998, I get it. Like I get it. I get the allure.
You'd be like the Magnus Carlsen of Pokemon battles.
I wouldn't be good, but I'd be doing it.
It should be our motto for most things. Like, we're not good, but we're doing it.
That's right. It's fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Do we want to move on to the segments?
Yeah, let's move ahead to the segments here. What your first pick? You can be segment master.
I have one. So this is for one of the segments we haven't done yet, and I want to talk about weird production facts.
Oh, please.
So, Pokemon Stadium specifically has actually become notorious for having one of the most outlandish stories. Like, it's one of those, like, this has to be somebody made this up for it to happen, but it is real, I assure you. So if you've never heard about this, strap in. So Pokemon Stadium actually had like a pretty rocky production. It was like really hard for them to port the Nintendo like framework, like Pokemon from the Game Boy to the N64. Like the technological jump was really massive, and it had completely different technical limitations, and also it was really difficult to bring in the 151 Pokemon that would be in a game into the way that Stadium was built on N64. Sure. So in comes future Nintendo president Satoru Iwata a week before the draft of the code for Stadium is due, and in 1 week he read the entire Pokemon source code on Game Boy and wrote it for Nintendo himself in 7 days. Thereby effectively creating the code to port Pokemon from Game Boy to a different system for the first time, which is sort of like this has to be like a joke, like this can't be real, and it's one of those like no, it's 100% real. And such an like I don't even know if that would be a thing that would be possible for a game now with how much code is involved, but the idea that like somebody could just be like, no, I got this. In 7 days, I will port an entire game by myself.
It's actually just like a clip from Hackers, just like frantically typing at the keyboard, while a coworker in the background is riding a skateboard in the office.
So that's my segment for Pokemon generally, I guess, or the one that I would think. What do you want to?
Yeah, I don't have.
What's your pick?
I don't have a weird production fact, but I am going to ask you to change my mind.
Oh, what am I changing your mind about?
Psychic has the best Pokemon.
Oh, okay. I actually don't think that's true. So this isn't me playing devil's advocate. I legitimately think Psychic kind of like best. It depends. I guess it depends. Okay, so here's my pitch. Objectively, they can't be best because every Pokemon has a weakness, and so Ghost Pokemon are they are effective against Psychic Pokemon. Now, do they have the best Pokemon? I also don't think this is true. First of all, Gengar exists and is not Psychic, and therefore, if you want ghosts that troll people in universe and may or may not be spirits of deceased people, Psychic's not for you. The other part of this that I would say is I think a lot of cool Pokemon types have come out over the years that might appeal to you So there's like dark, there's steel, fairy is pretty interesting, and I know like sometimes your like the color palette that you enjoy might actually be a bit more found in those Pokemon types now. Do you think that because you like purple, Psychic is your favorite?
My favorite psychic Pokemon is yellow.
Is it Abra?
Yeah, Abra's my top Pokemon all time.
Okay, why is Abra your top favorite? I don't want to I don't want to be mean to your fave. I just want to give you options, you know?
He's sitting down, or she. They're sitting down. Abra's sitting down, so they're relaxing. They're having a nice leisurely time.
Okay.
They're not working too hard, so they feel no pressure. Under threat, they like to teleport away, and I appreciate
Okay.
that. And I think if I saw an Abra out in the wild, uh, it's it's one of the Pokemon out of all the Gen 1, I'm talking all the Gen 1 here, that I would actually like say hello to.
Okay. Hmm.
Like
So
imagine you're out in the world and like boom, there's a Diglett coming out of the ground.
I would run away.
Yeah, you don't
Hell no.
stick around for that.
Hell no. That would be terrifying. Are you kidding me? If a giant like inch wide worm destroyed the ground and appeared in front of me, I would run.
Yeah, but
No, no, no way.
same thing about like what is it, Venomoth. I'm not sticking around for
No,
that.
there's a lot. Okay, but
Meowth is
here's
a
the thing.
cat, but it's interested in money, so you don't even want to get involved. Like I, Abra's a Pokemon that it's chilling, and if you startle it, it will leave. And I think that's probably the best place for a Pokemon to be.
Now, I mean, I think there are Pokemon that are adjacent to your interest that might interest you. So, Slowking, I think is firmly in that category of like very chill. You can say hello to. Doesn't teleport. He just doesn't care. But he's also
Slowking
psychic.
looks like
I think
it's
he's psychic
going
water.
through some things, and there's a level of volatility that I can't be sure isn't present in that moment. Like I don't get me wrong, I'm all for Slowking's life, but I don't think I don't
Okay,
think
but
I need to be around it. You know,
so
we're not
what
good for
if
each other. Is what I'm
you know?
getting at.
So what if I propose to you a family of Pokemon that are very cute and not necessarily chill like Abra, but very endearing, and which you have indicated that you enjoy kind of the way that they may play out. So what about the other evolutions that have come out in the years? You got your Leafeon, you got your Glaceon, your Sylveon. You got some like very approachable, friendly, different typed Pokemon.
Okay, Eevee, Eevee, and all the Evilites, whatever, however we call that in the Pokemon community, which I am clearly external to, as much as I do appreciate the franchise's existence. Um, Eevee conceptually is probably in my, like, if there's a top 6 Pokemon, they're in there, and all the evolutions are connected to that. There's like a sub tree where all of them are number 6, because I just think that as a concept, that's one of the more exciting ways to do a Pokemon for me. And they've always been that way since the first game. I'm like, Eevee is so cool. I wish there were more of this. And now there are so many, and I'm like, they took this exactly to where they should have taken it.
Okay, I'm gonna make my final case, and this is based solely on me knowing you IRL and the kind of memes that you enjoy. I feel like if you were a Pokemon master in real life,
Uh-oh.
you would 100% throw a Pokeball and a nose pass would come out. And it would like break me. I would laugh so hard that I would have to forfeit the match. but you would be like 100% serious about it. And I don't think Nosepass is psychic, so
I'm gonna very quickly Google Nosepass because I know what the Pokemon looks like. Um, yeah, I did. So it's a Gen 3 Pokemon. When I did play Gen 3, I absolutely main rostered a Nosepass, which is uh, I've been seen, and um, you know, it is rock type, but I feel like because it's kind of like this weird Moai statue, it should be psychic. Now, maybe that makes no sense. Maybe what I said makes no sense at all. But if you really think about it, with a head that big, even though it's made of rock, there is some kind of psychic force at play. And so I think mainly that Pokemon is mistyped. Um,
there's no
okay.
winning with you.
No, there really isn't. Also, Psyduck, come on.
Fair. I was thinking about it, but it's also I think it's been retyped. It used to just be water. I think it's retyped to water psychic now.
Yeah, Psyduck's totally got to be psychic.
I think it's been updated.
It's in the name.
Yeah, it wasn't for a while. Or like I mean the type wasn't there for some reason. Who knows? Listen, everybody gets things wrong.
Well, I like its psychic ambition, regardless. Um, before
I
we,
relate to its migraines.
yes, no, we all do. Before we leave, is there another segment you would like to get to before I pose one final question to you about our Pokemon experience?
So I have one, and I want to argue for this. So this is another segment, which in this case would be worded as we have Pokemon at home.
Okay.
And this is more of a pet peeve I have with the fandom in general, and I might be wrong on this, but so for many years we've discussed how Digimon is the lesser Pokemon. Because it feels weird and the evolutions go from tiny cute animals to giant cyborg dragons that make no sense. So I agree with all of that. The part that I really want to take to task here is when people say we have Pokemon at home and at home is Digimon, you're actually doing it wrong because Pokemon came after Digimon. Digimon's actually the older franchise.
But I think it's important to remember it's not always what comes first here. There is a like who really maximized the potential of the concept.
Listen,
And it
Pokemon
might still
has
be Digimon.
Pokemon has a keyring Pokemon, but Digimon has a dragon with Gatling guns on its back. Like
no,
I think it's an aesthetic thing.
No, it's not only an aesthetic thing, but I also get that there's like listen, it's no secret. I'm a bit of a music snob, it's a thing, and I could see there being a kind of like Digimon elitism where like this is the real version of this. It's the not, I don't know. I don't want to use the word normie because it's so rude. But I can totally envision, again, completely disconnected from this world, that there are a bunch of Digimon fans who are like, Pokemon is the normal person version of this. If you're really into collectible monsters, it's all about Digimon. But like,
I will concede that generally Pokemon has had better games.
As someone with literally no stake in this, outside of an observer and someone who just I did like Digimon as a franchise growing up at the same time too, but I'd love the Digimon show around the same time. But I guess you kind of have to ask the question, why didn't I Digimon? You know, why didn't most of us Digimon? We Pokemoned when we could have Digimoned, and we did it for a reason. This actually brings up another really interesting thing that I'm going to talk about here really quickly that I don't think we'll have another place to talk about it. So this is certainly not the only collectible monster franchise or game. There have been many. a game like Jade Cocoon on the original PlayStation, little unknown
Monster Rancher.
monster collecting, and this is where I was going to get to, is Monster Rancher, which was a game that on the PlayStation you would put in your CDs, your compact discs, and every compact disc would give you some kind of monster, and you would ranch them, you would raise them up, and then you would battle them together. And I couldn't find a copy to buy I'm from Windsor, Ontario, Canada, but one tiny store in a strip mall was a very niche rental outlet, had a copy of Monster Rancher. And one day I went in there and rented it for $4.99 for 5 days. And I never brought it back until about a year later. My mom got a phone call and was like, "Hello, you owe us $500 because of how long your kid has had Monster Rancher out." And the moral of the story is this. The collectible monster thing taps into something that...
Primal.
The primal. There's a hook there, and there's a reason, Pokemon has been with us since 1998 and is the media franchise that it is, right? Like, it's hard not to love, even if at times we're loving it begrudgingly. But it's not just Pokemon. There really is, like, the collectible cuteness, the raising up these little guys.
It's like,
it feels good.
It's like when you're on the street and you see a cute dog that is not your dog, and you're like, I'm not gonna steal that dog, but I also wish I had that dog.
Yeah.
Now imagine if that dog also shot lightning, and that's Pokemon.
Well, I think that's true. So to close off here, I have one final question, more of a fun one. We talked about the Pokemon movie earlier, the first one, of which there have been several, and then most recently, Detective Pikachu. If you could choose one Pokemon, and you had to pick one actor to portray that Pokemon in a subsequent adaptation, what Pokemon would it be, and who would you cast in the role?
I 100% know what this is for me. And the answer is I would pick a Psyduck and have it be voiced by Richard Ayoade. It's not even, like, there's not even a competition for me. He would just complain very lightly about his headaches and being aggravated by everyone's stress.
That's actually incredible, and now that you say it, I want to see it. But I'm gonna have two. I came up with two. One is my personal favorite because it's an Oddish and Opry Plaza, which I think would be fantastic. And then the actual winner for me was a Diglett portrayed by Danny DeVito.
That really contextualizes my being terrified earlier, because if a Diglett came out of the ground in the real world and Danny DeVito's voice came out of it...
I'm the trash man!
Oh, God.
And on that note,
oh, no.
This has been the Pokemon episode, and next week we're going to cover maybe a less... a less positive and less wholesome game that has since it came out really has been a source of somewhat controversial mechanics and consternation among the hardcore fan base. We're gonna be looking at Diablo 3 on Have You Played. So thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.